My name is Anton Garcia Fernandez, and I am talking to you from the small town of Martin, Tennessee. In today's videocast, we're going to be talking about a man whose music I've always enjoyed, a man who was forward-looking and innovative, a man who knew what he wanted to do, who knew the sound he wanted to get, who knew the goal he wanted to achieve, but unfortunately, because of this, because he was so innovative and so modern in the 1940s and 1950s, he never achieved the recognition that I believe he deserved. I'm talking about the one and only Herbie Nichols, the pianist and composer from New York City, who was born in 1919 and passed away in 1963. I've been reading about him quite a bit, and I've been listening to the few recordings that he made in his lifetime. And I would like to start the videocast by recommending this really interesting book written by A.B. Spellman and published originally in the mid-1960s. It's called 4 Lives in the Bebop Business, and these 4 lives are, of course, that of the great Herbie Nichols, but also Cecil Taylor has a chapter. Another chapter is about Jackie McLean, and another chapter is about Ornette Coleman. 4 fantastic musicians that it is really well worth reading about. The book is called 4 Lives in the Bebop Business, written by A.B. Spellman. Herbie Nichols, what a great musician, what a fantastic composer, a great performer. Born in New York City in 1919, he was not understood during his lifetime, but he has become a cult figure since his passing in 1963. His style was very innovative, very different within the bebop of the 1940s and 1950s, very much ahead of his time. Unfortunately, he spent a lot of time playing Dixieland music, which was not the bebop that he enjoyed playing. He did not dislike Dixieland necessarily, but playing traditional jazz is not exactly what he wanted to be doing at the end of the 40s and throughout the 1950s, but he had to do it because he had to find a way to make ends meet. His family settled in Harlem, and he started studying piano from the age of 7 or 8, more or less, and he was interested both in jazz and in classical music. Classical composers like Satie and Bartók and Stravinsky were always interesting to Herbie Nichols, and even though maybe he was not really influenced by them musically, at least he was influenced by them in his interest in blazing new trails in the 1940s and 1950s. He was also a very talented composer. He wrote some fine music, jazz tunes and calypso tunes and mambo tunes and different styles, because he was hoping that at some point he would strike gold with maybe not with jazz, or maybe not with calypso, maybe not with mambo, but at some point he was hoping that he would write a song that would give him some financial security. That never really happened, but he made some great music along the way, and he also was the man who wrote a song that we all remember because Billie Holiday recorded that song. Lady Sings the Blues. It's a song that was written by the great Herbie Nichols. He spent a lot of time playing with musicians who were way beneath his league. He was not as talented as he was, but he also had the chance to record with some fantastic people. Not a lot, but he did record some just a few sessions with some great musicians, and he also performed live with other great musicians, renowned musicians like Sonny Stitt and Lucky Thompson and Illinois Jacquet and J.J. Johnson, the trombonist. Unfortunately, there are no recordings of most of those collaborations with these musicians, and so we'll never know exactly what those collaborations would have sounded like. He was never at all as popular as some of his contemporaries like Charlie Parker or Dizzy Gillespie or Thelonious Monk. In fact, it's quite interesting that it was Herbie Nichols who first wrote an article praising the music of Thelonious Monk. Several critics believe that his style is a cross between the music of Thelonious Monk and that of Teddy Wilson. But in any case, he always kept a very personal style. Mary Lou Williams, the pianist, was one of the few who, during his lifetime, appreciated the music of Herbie Nichols, and she got around to recording some of the compositions by Herbie Nichols, like At the Function or Mary's Waltz, which was originally titled the Bebop Waltz, but Mary Lou Williams retitled it Mary's Waltz, and that was one of the recordings that Mary Lou Williams made of music by Nichols. Nichols was introduced to Mary Lou Williams apparently by Thelonious Monk himself. Herbie did record, not a lot, but he did record in the year of 1956. Between May and August of 1956, he made 5 sessions. He led 5 sessions for Blue Note Records. Alfred Lyon finally agreed to record Nichols, who was pestering him for a chance, and those 5 sessions include some of the best music that Herbie Nichols ever recorded. All of them are original compositions by Nichols, and he appears always in a trio context with Teddy Kotick and Al McKibben on bass, and Art Blakey or Max Roach on drums. Really good company right there, and this really is the first collection of recordings that people should listen to when it comes to discovering the music of Herbie Nichols. The recordings, 30 songs in total, plus 18 alternate takes that survive, never made a big impact on the buying public, although they were praised by some critics at the time. Insiders knew the recordings. Insiders liked the recordings, but the public at large didn't pay particularly much attention. But thinking about Herbie Nichols from the point of view of today, this is where we should start listening to his music. About a year later, in November of 1957, he visited the studios again, not for Blue Note this time, but for Bethlehem, and he recorded an album entitled Love, Gloom, Cash, Love. Again in a trio setting with George Duvivier on bass and Danny Richmond on drums. Danny Richmond was the drummer who was working with Charlie Mingus at the time. It's probably not as powerful, probably not as daring as the recordings he made for Blue Note in 1956, but it's still a lovely album with very innovative compositions. Most of the songs recorded here are originals by Herbie Nichols, although there are also 2 standards, actually one standard, Too Close for Comfort, that receives the Herbie Nichols treatment, and then a song that was fairly new at the time, All the Way, which Frank Sinatra made into a hit from his movie The Joker is Wild, and that's a song that you don't get to hear very often in a bebop context. But Duvivier and Richmond and Nichols do a fine job with that song, as well as with the many originals that Nichols contributed to this session. Love, Gloom, Cash, Love, recorded in 1957 for Bethlehem Records. And that was the last time, believe it or not, that Herbie Nichols led his own session. That was the last session he led, because in the last few years of his life he didn't record, as far as I know, but he did appear on the East Coast quite frequently, sometimes in better clubs than others. He also made a tour of Scandinavia in 1962, but again playing not bebop music, but Dixieland music. He had some fond memories of that trip to Scandinavia, even though he didn't really make a lot of money, and as far as I know, there are no recordings of the gigs in Scandinavia from 1962. He did also study music thoroughly, particularly African music. He was enthralled by African music, which he believed lay at the very root of jazz, and he was interested particularly in African percussion, which probably explains why his style is so percussive. Also explains why there is this connection with Thelonious Monk, whose music was also dissonant and also quite percussive with unexpected rhythms, the way Herbie Nichols' music was. He kept studying music and kept this fascination for African music to the very end of his life. In the early 1960s, with hard bop and the new thing and this new jazz music that was being produced, it looked like this would be a good moment for Herbie Nichols, but unfortunately he couldn't take advantage of the fact that he probably could have made some interesting contributions to hard bop and to the new thing. He couldn't do it because he was diagnosed with leukemia, and unfortunately the disease ended his career and ended his life in April of 1963. He passed away also in New York City, and according to Spellman in this book, 4 Lives in the Bebop Business, the last few years and months of Nichols' career, Nichols' life, were not very happy ones. He felt like he was misunderstood by everyone, that he really didn't stand a chance. Nobody would give him a chance, and he was living from paycheck to paycheck pretty much, and trying to find jobs, trying to find work, musical work that is, wherever he could find it. Unfortunately, he didn't get a chance to make more contributions. He would have probably had a lot to say in the 1960s, but what we have by him is absolutely recommendable. And there are 2 albums that I recommend everyone out there to look for. One of them is the 3 CD set on Blue Note that includes the complete recordings that he made for Blue Note in 1956. Absolutely a jewel, absolutely recommendable for anyone who really likes classic bebop and the kind of music that Herbie Nichols recorded is very well exemplified in the recordings of 1956, but also Love, Gloom, Cash, Love, which he recorded for Bethlehem Records in 1957. That's another album that I would buy after listening to the Blue Note recordings, which fortunately are still available, even though they were originally reissued on CD back in 1997.